At 78, I thought I had settled into the last quiet stretch of my life. My name is Walter Harris, and for most of my years, I worked shoulder to shoulder with my younger brother, Daniel, running our family's small hardware store in Ohio. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, serving neighbors, fixing things, keeping the doors open through thick and thin. That store had been in our family for 3 generations, and every nail, every shelf, every squeaky floorboard carried our history. When my wife passed 10 years ago, the store became my anchor. It gave me purpose. Each morning, I'd unlock the front door, turn on the lights, and breathe in the faint smell of sawdust and old wood. It reminded me of my father, who taught us both to work hard and never give up. But lately, Daniel had been pushing me aside. He's 71, 7 years younger, but he acts like I'm ancient, like I don't have anything left to give. One rainy afternoon, we were sitting in the back office going over receipts. The numbers didn't look good. The business had been struggling for a while. Online stores were eating us alive, and fewer people stopped by every month. I leaned forward and said, "Dan, I think we need to try something different. Advertise locally, maybe offer repair workshops. People still trust us. They just need a reason to come in." He didn't even look at me. He just sighed, rubbed his forehead, and muttered, "Walter, you don't get it anymore. Times have changed. You're too old and too weak to help. Just let me handle it." Too weak. The words hit me harder than any punch I'd taken in my youth. I sat there in silence, staring at my own brother. The boy I once protected when kids picked on him, the man whose first paycheck I covered when he was short on rent. And he was looking at me like I was a burden. "I'm not useless, Daniel," I said finally, my voice low. But he waved me off. "It's not about being useless. It's about being realistic. You can't keep up. You should be at home resting, not breaking your back here. I'll figure out what to do with the store." With the store, not our store. His. I left that night feeling like the walls of the shop were closing in on me. The shelves that once made me proud now seemed like prison bars. My father's picture on the wall, him smiling in his work apron, felt like it was staring right through me, asking, "Are you just going to let him throw away everything we built?" At home, I sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the words echoing in my mind. Too weak to help. I looked down at my hands, knotted with veins, stiff with arthritis, but still steady. These hands had built houses, fixed machines, and carried the weight of my family for decades. Too weak? No, I refuse to believe that. The betrayal burned deep. But beneath that fire, something else stirred. Determination. Daniel might think I was finished, but if I'd forgotten one thing, I knew this business better than anyone. I had lived through recessions, watched competitors rise and fall, kept the doors open when everyone said it was impossible. If the store was dying, I wasn't going to sit by and let it slip away. I was going to prove him wrong. And not just by talking, by action. Because this wasn't just about saving the store. This was about saving my pride. This was about showing my brother and everyone else that Walter Harris was far from done. The days that followed were harder than I expected. Daniel threw himself into business, but instead of listening to ideas or adapting, he doubled down on cutting corners. He fired 2 of our part-time helpers, good kids who'd been with us for years, claiming we couldn't afford them. That left him trying to juggle everything, and me standing by, watching the store fall apart. I still came in every morning. I swept the floors, stocked shelves, greeted customers. But Daniel treated me like background noise. When I'd suggest something, maybe keep the staff, they know the regulars, or we should promote repair services, he brushed me off. "Walter, please," he'd say, his voice tight. "Just enjoy retirement. Let me run things my way." His way wasn't working. Within weeks, the place looked emptier. Customers who once trusted us started drifting to the big box hardware chain across town. One afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins, a loyal customer for 30 years, came in and whispered to me, "Walter, I hate to say it, but it feels different here now. Cold, like it's not the same store anymore." I nodded, my throat tight. She was right. The warmth, the care, the community. That was what kept us alive, not just the tools on the shelves. But Daniel didn't see it. Instead, he tried flashy gimmicks. He ordered cheap bulk items from overseas and filled the aisles with things no one asked for. Plastic shelves creaked under the weight of junk that didn't belong. The store lost its soul. One evening, after closing, I found him staring at the ledger, his face pale. "We're bleeding money, Walter," he muttered. "I don't know how much longer we can keep this up." I wanted to say, "That's because you're running it into the ground." But I bit my tongue. The hurt from his words, too weak to help, still sat heavy in my chest. If I argued, he'd just dismiss me again. Instead, I started paying closer attention. When customers walked in, I watched what they looked for, what they complained about. When they walked out empty-handed, I asked quietly why. Some said prices were too high. Others said service wasn't the same. A few admitted they only came out of loyalty to me. That was when I realized something Daniel didn't. People still trusted me. They still wanted the Walter Harris they'd known for decades, the man who fixed their door hinges, who showed their kids how to use a hammer safely, who treated them like family instead of dollar signs. One Saturday, a young man named Kyle came in with a broken lawnmower blade. Daniel waved him off. "We don't deal with repairs like that anymore. Go to the chain store." But I stepped forward, took the blade, and said, "Come back tomorrow. I'll have it sharpened for you." Kyle's face lit up with gratitude. "Thanks, Mr. Harris. I knew I could count on you." When he left, Daniel snapped at me. "Why do you keep doing that? We don't have time for repairs." I looked him dead in the eye. "That's exactly why people are leaving. You forgot what made us different." He shook his head, muttering something about me being stuck in the past, and stormed out. But I knew I was right. That night, alone in the store, I walked the aisle slowly. Dust gathered on unsold items. The shelves sagged with things nobody wanted. Yet in the corner sat the old workbench, the same one my father used, worn smooth by decades of use. I laid my hands on it and felt a spark, like the spirit of the store was still there, waiting. Daniel thought I was too weak, too old, too stuck in the past. But I wasn't. I could see what he couldn't. The business wasn't dead. It just needed life breathed back into it. And if he wouldn't do it, then I would. Quietly, carefully, I began to make plans. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. I arrived at the store early, as I always did, and found a man in a suit standing outside with Daniel. They were shaking hands, smiling too wide. I didn't like it. When I walked up, Daniel looked nervous. "Walter," he said quickly, "this is Mr. Grant. He's the potential buyer." The words knocked the breath out of me. "Buyer? Buyer for what?" Daniel cleared his throat. "For the store. We can't keep going like this. I've made some calls. It's the smart thing to do." I stared at him, my own brother, the man I'd worked beside for 50 years. Without even asking me, without even telling me, he shifted uncomfortably. "Walter, come on. You know you're not really involved anymore. This is too much for you. I'm just handling it." Handling it. That was his excuse for cutting me out completely. I looked at the store, our father's store, the shelves we had stocked together as teenagers, the memories of long nights balancing the books, the laughter of satisfied customers who trusted us more than anyone. And Daniel was ready to sell it off like an old lawnmower. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only had he dismissed me as too weak, but now he was trying to erase everything we had built. I turned and walked away before I said something I'd regret. But inside, something hardened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a pad of paper and a pen, just like I used to do when planning for the store decades ago. I wrote down 2 columns. What we have: loyal customers' reputation, experience, location, community trust. What's wrong? Poor service, wrong products, no repairs, no vision. The more I wrote, the clearer it became. The business wasn't failing because of age or bad luck. It was failing because Daniel had lost a heart of it. He was chasing shortcuts and gimmicks, forgetting that people came to us because we cared. And if he couldn't see that, then I would take it into my own hands. I whispered to the empty kitchen. "Too weak, huh? I'll show you weak." Over the next week, I began quietly moving. I called old contacts, suppliers we hadn't used in years, folks who still remember the Harris name with respect. I asked about deals on quality goods, tools people actually needed, not the junk Daniel was stocking. Most of them were eager to help. I also started talking to customers directly. When they came in looking disappointed, I pulled them aside. Tell me what you miss. Tell me what you need. Their answers were always the same: honesty, reliability, someone who listened. That I could give them. Daniel thought I was fading into the background, but in truth, I was gathering information, building a plan step by step. The realization hit me hard one evening as I stood in the empty store after closing. Daniel might be my brother, but he had become the obstacle. He had given up, written me off, and nearly thrown away the family legacy. If I wanted to say what mattered, I couldn't just be the quiet old man sweeping floors. I had to fight, not with fists, not with anger, but with action. I would lift this business back to life. Not for Daniel, not even for me, but for our Father's name and for everyone who still believed in us. And when it worked, when customers came pouring back in and the store thrived again, Daniel would see the truth with his own eyes. He called me too weak to help. Soon, he'd realize I was the only one strong enough to save us. I've always believed revenge doesn't have to come in shouts and slam doors. Sometimes, the best revenge is quiet, careful, and patient. Like a seed planted in the soil, growing stronger until no one could ignore it. That's exactly how I approached saving the store. Daniel kept thinking I was fading into the background. He'd wave me off whenever I swept the aisles or helped a customer, treating me like a tired old man clinging to routine. What he didn't know was that I was already laying the groundwork to rebuild everything he was tearing down. The first step was reconnecting with our roots. I went down the basement one evening and pulled out our father's old ledgers. Dust coated the covers, but inside were pages of notes, sales records, and little reminders about what worked and what didn't. Dad had written things like, "Never stop repairs. They bring customers back, and trust is worth more than profit." Those words reminded me why people had loved our store in the first place. I decided to bring repairs back. Not officially, not yet, because Daniel would explode, but quietly. I told a few long-time customers, "If you need something fixed, bring it to me. I'll take care of it." Soon word spread. People started coming to me with broken tools, loose hinges, dull blades. I fixed them all at my old workbench in the back, just like my father used to. Next came the suppliers. Daniel had shifted to cheap bulk items that looked flashy but broke easily. Customers hated them. So I called Mr. Lawson, an old supplier who had once given us good quality American-made tools. When he heard my voice, he laughed. "Walter Harris, I thought you retired into a rocking chair." "Not yet," I said with a smile. "I need the kind of stock we use to sell. Quality, honest tools people can trust." Lawson didn't hesitate. "For you, I'll get you a deal. We need more folks like you around." Slowly, I began sneaking in real merchandise alongside Daniel's cheap imports. I stocked the shelves late at night after Daniel had gone home, labeling things quietly. When customers noticed, they nodded approvingly. "This is the Harris hardware I remember," one man told me, holding up a sturdy hammer. I was careful, though. I didn't want Daniel catching on too soon. So I let him believe he was still running the show, still in charge, while I built a foundation beneath him. The third piece of my plan was a community. For decades, our store had been more than just a place to buy nails and hammers. It was a gathering spot. Kids learned their first woodworking skills here. Neighbors swapped advice in the aisles. That sense of belonging had faded under Daniel's management, so I started bringing it back. On Saturdays, I invited a few neighborhood kids into the garage out back. I showed them how to build birdhouses, fix simple tools, and use sandpaper properly. Their parents stopped by to watch, smiling as they sipped coffee I brewed in an old percolator. "Feels like the old days, Walter," they said, and it did. Each small step was a brick in the wall of my revenge. Daniel thought I was too weak to help, but the customers were coming back, not for him, but for me. They whispered it when they checked out. They told me quietly in the aisles, "It's good to have you back in charge, Mr. Harris." I didn't correct them. Not yet. The final part of my plan was paperwork. I went to see an old friend, Mark, who'd been our accountant years ago. I asked him to help me quietly review the store's financials. He raised an eyebrow. "Walter, why are you doing this behind Daniel's back?" "Because he doesn't believe in me," I said simply. "But I'm not letting him bury this family's legacy." Mark studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's get you the numbers." What we found shocked me. Daniel had been making reckless orders, spending money we didn't have, and racking up debt. The store wasn't just struggling. It was on the brink of collapse. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the ledger open in front of me. My heart pounded, but not with fear, with determination. Daniel wanted to sell. He wanted to give up. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I was going to turn this around, piece by piece, even if it killed me. Because when the dust settled, I didn't just want the business alive again. I wanted my brother to look me in the eye and admit he was wrong. The day I decided to stop hiding was the day I saw a young father walk out of our store empty-handed. He had come in asking for a simple set of screws to fix his child's bike, but all he found were rows of cheap, mismatched kits Daniel had ordered. Frustrated, he muttered, "I'll just go to the chain store," and left. That was it. Enough was enough. The next morning, I opened the store early, an hour before Daniel showed up. I laid out the quality tools I'd gotten from Lawson, displayed them neatly on the front shelves, and set up a small sign, "Repairs and Workshops. Ask Walter." It was simple, but it was bold. When Daniel arrived and saw the sign, his face turned red. "What is this?" "We don't have time for your little side projects." I looked him in the eye. "We don't have time not to. Customers are leaving. I'm giving them a reason to come back." He started to argue, but a bell rang at the front door. A customer walked in carrying a broken shovel. "Mr. Harris, I heard you might be fixing things again." I smiled. "Yes, sir. Leave it with me, and it'll be ready tomorrow." Daniel clenched his jaw, but said nothing as the man gratefully shook my hand. That was the beginning. Within a week, word spread. Old customers began trickling back in, asking for repairs or looking for the good stock they knew I carried. Parents brought their kids to the Saturday workshops, and laughter filled the back garage again. For the first time in months, the cash register actually rang with real sales. One Saturday, Mrs. Jenkins, our most loyal customer, stopped me in the aisle. "Walter, this feels like the store I grew up with again. Don't you dare stop what you're doing." Those words lit a fire in me. I started taking bolder steps. I organized a fix-it day, where anyone could bring in broken tools or furniture for advice. Dozens showed up, and the store buzzed with life. Kids watched as I sharpened blades, adults asked questions, and neighbors mingled. People left smiling, carrying not just the repaired items, but a renewed trust in Harris Hardware. Daniel was furious. "You're undermining me," he hissed one night after closing. "You're making me look like a fool." I set down my rag and looked him square in the eye. "You don't need my help to look like a fool, Daniel. You did that when you tried to sell this store, without me." His face turned pale, but I didn't back down. For too long, I'd let him talk over me. That time was over. The numbers started shifting in our favor. Mark, the accountant, showed me the books. "Walter, sales are climbing again. Repairs alone are bringing in steady income. If this keeps up, you'll cover the debts within months." I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. Good. That's what I wanted to hear. Daniel, meanwhile, couldn't ignore what was happening. Customers asked for me by name. They trusted me, not him. More than once, I caught him standing at the counter, watching me laugh with a customer, his eyes dark with envy. But I didn't care about his jealousy. I cared about saving what mattered. One evening, Emily, the same granddaughter who once thought I was too old to help, came into the store with her father. She looked around at the bustling aisles, the kids in the back painting birdhouses, and the shelves filled with good, sturdy tools. She turned to me and said, almost in awe, "Grandpa, you did all this?" I smiled softly. "We did. The community and I, we brought it back." Daniel overheard her and muttered under his breath, "Yeah, you brought it back." But there was no denying the truth. For the first time in years, Harris Hardware wasn't dying. It was alive again. And I had done it. It was late on a Friday evening when the confrontation finally came. The store had been busier than I'd seen it in years. People streamed in for repairs, real tools, and the Saturday workshop we were preparing. The shelves were tidy, the register was full, and there was a buzz in the air I hadn't felt since my father's time. But Daniel wasn't smiling. I found him pacing in the back office, his face red, his hands balled into fists. "This has to stop, Walter," he snapped as soon as I walked in. I raised an eyebrow. "Stop? Business is thriving again. Customers are coming back. We're pulling out of debt. What exactly do you want me to stop?" He slammed his hand on the desk. "You've made me look useless. Everyone asked for you, not me. You've turned this place into your show, not ours." I felt the anger rise in me, hot and steady. "Yours? You mean yours? Don't think I didn't know about the buyer you brought in. You were ready to sell this place out from under me without a word." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because I thought it was the only way. I thought you were too weak to handle it." There was again, "Too weak." I stepped forward, my voice shaking but strong. "Too weak? Look around you, Daniel. Who's keeping these doors open now? Who's fixing what you broke? You wrote me off like an old rag, and yet I'm the one carrying the store back to life." For a moment, he said nothing. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, his eyes darting as if searching for an excuse. Finally, he muttered, "You blindsided me. I was supposed to be in charge." "In charge of what?" I shot back. "Running us into the ground? Driving customers away? Forgetting everything Dad taught us? He built this place on trust and hard work, not shortcuts and cheap tricks. You dishonored that, Daniel, and then you had the nerve to call me weak?" His face crumpled, but pride held him upright. I didn't think you had it in you anymore." I let the silence hang for a long moment. My hands shook, but not from fear, from release, from finally saying what I'd been holding back. "Well, you were wrong. I may be old, but I'm not done. I'll never be done while I still have breath in me. And if saving the store proves anything, it proves that strength isn't about age, it's about will." Daniel sank into the chair behind him, rubbing his temples. For once, he had no comeback, no dismissive laugh, no quick retort, just silence. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. "You said this was your store." "It's not. It's ours. And if you can't see that, then you don't belong here anymore." The next morning, he didn't show up. For the first time in 50 years, I opened Harris Hardware alone. Customers noticed. "Where's your brother?" one asked. I shrugged. Maybe he needed time to think. But the truth was, I didn't miss him. Not in the store, anyway. The business ran smoother, without his interference. And deep down, I knew he stayed away because he couldn't face the reality. He had underestimated me, and I had proved him wrong in front of the whole community. That night, I sat at the old workbench, the ledger open in front of me. The numbers looked better. Sales were climbing steadily, debts shrinking. I whispered into the quiet, "We did it, Dad. We saved it." And though Daniel wasn't there to hear it, I knew the confrontation had changed everything. For once, I wasn't the brother being dismissed. I was the brother who had brought our family business back from the dead. The weeks after Daniel stormed out were some of the busiest we'd had in years. Word of mouth spread fast. Walter's back in charge at Harris Hardware. Customers old and new came through the doors, smiling as if they were stepping into a piece of history restored. The cash register rang steady. Shelves stayed stocked with real tools, and the workshops out back became a Saturday tradition. The store had life again, and so did I. One afternoon, as I helped a boy fix a bent bicycle rim, I noticed Daniel standing quietly at the front door. He looked older than I remembered, his shoulders slumped, his face lined with defeat. For a long moment, he just watched. When the boy pedaled away grinning, Daniel finally stepped inside. "I came to see for myself," he muttered. His voice was low, almost ashamed. "The store's alive again." I wiped my hands on a rag and met his gaze. "It never died, Daniel. You just stopped believing in it. And in me. He looked down, shifting uncomfortably. I thought you couldn't handle it. I thought you were finished. I let the silence stretch before answering. You wanted to sell our father's legacy because you couldn't see past my age. You called me weak, useless. But weakness isn't about years. It's about giving up. And you gave up long before I ever did. For once, he didn't argue. His eyes glistened as he nodded slowly. You're right. It wasn't easy to hear him say it. For decades, Daniel and I had stood side by side. To see him broken now, humbled, reminded me that revenge wasn't about destroying him. It was about restoring what mattered. You don't have to be cut out, I said finally. But if you stay, you follow my lead. No more shortcuts, no more gimmicks. We do this the right way, like Dad taught us. Otherwise, you walk away. He swallowed hard, then whispered, I'll follow. From that day on, Daniel came back, not as a man in charge, but as a brother willing to learn again. Customers still came for me, but slowly, I let them see us side by side. It wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about proving that the Harris name still meant something. Months later, the debts were gone, and the ledger finally showed profit. The mayor himself stopped by to congratulate us on bringing life back to Main Street. And when he shook my hand, I felt pride swell in my chest, not just for myself, but for everyone who had stood by the store when it mattered most. One Saturday evening, Emily walked in. She wandered the aisles, watching the kids hammering together birdhouses and the neighbors chatting by the counter. Finally, she turned to me and said softly, Grandpa, I was wrong. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. Her words, more than any profit or praise, were the victory I needed. That night, after we closed, I sat at the old workbench with the lights dimmed. I pulled out my father's photo, the one of him smiling in his apron, the store sign right behind him. I sat on the counter and whispered, We did it, Dad. We saved it. We carried it forward. The store was more than nails, hammers, and shelves. It was family. It was history. It was proof that even in the twilight of life, strength could rise again. Daniel had tried to bury me under the label of too weak. Instead, I had lifted us all. And as long as the Harris name hung above that door, I knew no one would ever doubt me again. 6 months after Daniel's attempted sale and my quiet rebellion, Harris Hardware wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. The ledger showed more black ink than red. Shelves were stocked with quality tools, and Saturdays were packed with families bringing their kids for workshops. The store had become more than a business again. It was a hub, a heartbeat for community. Walking down Main Street, I could see the difference. People nodded at me, smiled, even stopped to say, Glad you brought it back, Walter. It wasn't just about nails and hammers anymore. It was about trust, about proving that even when the world tries to count you out, you can fight your way back. Daniel worked beside me, quieter than he used to be, humbler. He listened more than he talked now. He didn't make reckless orders or push shortcuts. He still had pride. My brother always would, but it was tempered by the sting of his mistake. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me with something between guilt and admiration. He never said the words outright, but I could see it in his eyes. You were right. I was wrong. And then there was Emily. One Saturday, she showed up unexpectedly with a notepad in hand. Grandpa, she said, I want to learn. Not just watch, learn. About the business, about running it. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't you say I was too old to teach you anything? Her cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. I was wrong. You've taught me more in the last few months than I've learned in school. I chuckled, shaking my head, but inside, I felt something warm spread in my chest. Revenge had been sweet, yes, but redemption was sweeter. I hadn't just proved Daniel wrong. I had reignited respect in the next generation. Slowly, I began showing Emily the ropes. She helped stock shelves, learned the ledger, and sat beside me during workshops. Customers smiled when they saw her with me. Looks like the Harris name is safe for another generation, one man said, clapping me on the shoulder. At night, when I locked up the store and walked home, I often thought of my father. He had built this place with his bare hands, poured his sweat into it, and taught us never to quit. For a while, I thought that legacy had been lost. But now, I realized I was carrying it forward, not just for myself, but for everyone who still believed in us. The final vindication came at the town's annual business awards. I wasn't expecting anything. I never did. But when the mayor stepped up to the microphone and said, "This year's Community Impact Award goes to Harris Hardware," my knees nearly buckled. The crowd erupted in applause, and as I walked the stage, I spotted Daniel in the audience, clapping harder than anyone. When I accepted the plaque, I said simply, "They told me I was too weak to help. But strength isn't about age. It's about refusing to give up. This store belongs to the community, and as long as I'm here, I'll keep fighting for it." The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for me. It was for the Harris name, for the spirit of resilience that no betrayal could erase. That night, back at the store, I hung the plaque on the wall beside my father's photo. The two of us, side by side, keepers of a legacy that almost slipped away. I sat down at the old workbench, the same one I'd repaired countless tools on, and let out a deep breath. I had done what everyone, especially my own brother, thought I couldn't. And as I closed my eyes, listening to the quiet hum of the building around me, I knew one thing for certain. They would never call me weak again.